Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of This Is HCD. In this episode, I'm catching up with the brilliant Marzia Aricò, author of Design Leadership Chronicles, to dive into the messy realities of design leadership, trust in organisations, and why design roles, as we know them, may not survive into the next decade. Marzia shares her personal journey, the lessons she learned from writing her book, and why she believes design leadership will evolve beyond its current form. We also discuss the challenges of bringing true diversity into the leadership and pitfalls trying to sell design and the power of understanding how organisations actually create value. Now, if you're an emerging leader in design, this episode is just for you because it's packed with real talk, hard truths and practical insights on how to navigate the world of leadership without losing yourself in the process. Let's get into it. Marzia, where are you today? Are you in Rotterdam?
No, I'm in Palermo, Sicily.
Oh, la pizza, la pasta.
I actually moved here over the holidays, during Christmas holidays.
Wow.
It's a live prototype. So we're trying to live here. We gave ourselves until August to see whether it works.
Yeah.
We have a whole prototyping plan.
Who's we now?
Oh, me, my husband, my children, we are all checking whether life here is better than there.
Now, you do know you sound much more Italian than you did the last time you had John.
I've been here for a month already. Well,
I have a big love for Italy, as I've told you a couple of times. I got married in Italy.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
In Naples, and we dream of going back and hanging out like there and introducing our kids to the area. So you're prototyping life, back there. What are the key differences that you're finding between the Netherlands and Italy?
There are some obvious ones, right? Like, the weather.
The government.
Yeah, the government. But also like people's attitude towards life,
Yeah.
Is way more street smart here. Like people just get to do things.
Yeah.
While in the Netherlands is way more legacy, things are in a certain way. And I'm enjoying, I actually needed that creative side, that, there is a level of creative energy going on. And there are so many people coming from the north of Europe here just because that is cold and here is not.
Yeah.
They bring, new energy, new ideas, and it's really popping. And I started to believe, that if any new model to our society will ever emerge, will come from places at the fringes like this,
Yeah.
They're not going to come from central London.
No, they're going to come in the spaces where there's space to breathe and
indeed, and think and create, and where, to be honest, there is not much to lose in a sense, And so I'm here, and for now I've been, observing, but I've been having a couple of ideas for businesses that I want to start.
Oh, look at you. Before we start recording, we're talking about entrepreneurship, and that's kind of like when you do what I do and what Marzia is doing now, like it is feeling much closer to testing businesses and testing ideas and going with your instincts a lot of the time. For people who don't know Marzia Aricò, okay, so you arrived back into Sicily. Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up.
Yeah, so they already know who you are and what you are in the area, sort of.
Away for 20 years, like it's really long.
So you're going back into that world, and they're like, "Oh, Marzia, great to see you."
Because people are so old, like people that I used to know like 20 years ago, now they're so old. They probably think
they don't listen to this. They're like, "Excuse me, Marzia, I'm not old."
Like there should be a movie, like that I'm saying. Like,
yeah, I'm not old. In my mind, I'm only 20. I know it's. I can imagine what it's like, but they remember you as a child. So when they ask you the question, "What do you do now?" Like, how do you answer it?
Yeah, so I say I'm a consultant.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, because it's fluffy enough for them to go, "Oh, okay, yeah, consultants, I kind of understand." And then I say, and I do it in design, and that's where they got like,
yeah,
you mean design consultancy.
So, like, I mean, most people who listen to this podcast will be very familiar with that conversation, especially if they say the terms like service design, user experience design, any of those things. Within our world of design, we all kind of nod and kind of go, yeah, I know what you do. But what do you do after that to help connect the dots? I'd love to hear your perspective on how you explain this.
I use the word creativity a lot. So I say that I help people in organizations, lead and work more creatively. And I say that I work only with mostly with very large corporate clients that have issues related to the fact that they're that big, right? And they have a lot of processes and a lot of policies and a lot of rules. And those rules are not necessarily set for people to thrive in the modern days. So I help people think more creatively about this stuff. And that they kind of understand, because, creativity is something that they recognize, right? That I guess they have no clue how you do that in real life, but they position me in a certain box that they can recognize.
Okay, yeah. Because my perspective in Italy is obviously quite different, I'd imagine, to yours. And especially if you're in a rural area in Italy, what are the opportunities like to work as you are as a service designer in that area?
None. No, absolutely not. But I'm not here to work here. I'm here to live here. I work somewhere else, which is inside this laptop, right? And I keep traveling as I was traveling before. To be honest, so I've been living in the Netherlands for 10 years now, 12. And I would say 15% of my clients are in the Netherlands. The rest is UK, it's the US, Germany, Luxembourg, north of Italy, something in Milan. So it really makes zero difference for me to be here all day. It's just that, if you need to travel, it's a bit longer. Like the trip is a bit longer. Yeah. Like I could go to London in 2.5 hours, 3 hours from Rotterdam. From here, it's a bit longer, but
Yeah, it is what it is. As long as you're enjoying yourself, that's the main thing. Now, look, I have like someone joining this podcast now at the moment.
Oh my God, what a beautiful book!
Hello,
looks great.
This is the Design Leadership Chronicles.
It's popping.
I'm going to be honest, right? Like, I remember probably 3 years ago, was it?
Yeah.
Or something. You sent me a message. You go, hey, Gerry, I can't do an impression of you, so it's just going to be generic Italian.
Message, you cannot add an Italian accent to a written message.
Everyone would be like, it's so rude. He was doing an Italian accent to her face. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. This is how I do it. I just love accents. It gets me in trouble maybe 50% of the time. But I remember when you sent me, so I've got an idea for a book. It's going to be cartoons.
Graphic novel, is that?
Initially, I think the word cartoon might have been maybe it was a graphic novel. Maybe you did. I'll give you the credit there. I was like, Marzia is actually crazy.
Yes, you did. You were very negative. You're like, no, I don't think it's gonna.
I think I said that initially, I was like, I don't know, I was like trying to see it. I couldn't, for whatever. And I look back at it now and I was like, man, I was a negative Nancy. I really was,
He really helped me. He helped me to think, okay, Gerry is not really possible. So I need to really think through why am I using this format? What am I trying to achieve with it? He gave me the push to really think about my choices.
Yeah.
It's actually.
You do know that came out of a place of kind of love and respect, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course. But that's why I was just
waking up. I wasn't going to go, oh, Marzia, I'm just going to ruin your day. It was definitely not that. And from where you took that idea to now, I'd love to understand a few things. One, the journey from there to here. This beautiful book. It is a beautiful book. I cannot remember the name of it's Gustavo Canete. It was one of the main illustrators, and Elena and Iris. They did a remarkable job. I remember saying, I think I said to you, can you draw? And you were like, no. I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. And you'd sent me a few different drafts of it, and I was just like,
it was very early.
Yeah, really early. I've got a couple of ideas. I kept on saying to myself, that's going to be a tiny book, not like physical size, like that size.
Okay.
I was like, it's going to be really small. And then you're like, no, I'm going to do a lot of them. And I was like, okay, maybe that will work. But I think in my mind, I was locked into the whole kind of cartoon thing of like, are you going to have a cartoon version of, I don't know, Ben Reason or cartoon versions of all these design dudes or designers,
But
designeresses?
then actually a lot of women don't say dudes, so because,
That's what I said, designeresses or designers. I said, or design dudes. That's what I said. So you've got this, and it's been out now for, was it 6 months?
Yeah, but that's like 4 months.
4 months. Well, I've had it longer, haven't I? I think BIS sent me this about 4 or 5 months. I think it was probably in around that time. Tell me, after we WhatsApped and we were going back and forth, what did you do then apart from hate me?
No, I didn't hate you at all. I actually welcome, feedback that is constructive. It was constructive. It wasn't just. Okay, what did I do? So I started thinking about, why do I want to do this graphic novel? Like, why do I want to do this as a graphic novel? And actually started building connections with my experience working with designers. So I've been in design for like 20 years. Yeah. And in the last 10, I would say, I work with more non-designers than designers, okay? And a lot of the people, but I've been teaching a lot. I was in schools and universities. I've been working with, TU Delft, with Imperial College, with the Polytechnic. So I've been always doing that. And a lot of designers that I know, especially in design leadership roles, they either have ADHD or they are on the spectrum. And people that cover those roles, happen to experience that. And for people who have ADHD, it's very hard to read thick book.
Yeah,
it doesn't work because you have to, or dyslexic. A lot of them are also dyslexic, right? So they all reading a thick book with concepts is really hard. And I experienced it because I did a PhD in 2016 or 17.
Copenhagen.
At Copenhagen Business School, and it was, and I thought it was a brilliant piece of work. Almost no one in my office actually managed to read it, but not because they were not interested. Because then when I presented to them and I shared the content in a visual format and a more storytelling way, they were all really hooked up. It's just that really thick text is not for everyone.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do something that was way more the other spectrum of my PhD. So completely on the other side, something that was absolutely inclusive, that was easy to read, that was quick to read, and it could also feel relatable to people. I wanted people to see themselves in this book.
Yeah.
And that's the second aspect of it, that, with a graphic novel, you can express emotions in a way that is really hard to do with words. So by showing a face of someone that is really stressed and anxious, you see yourself in that person. You have been in the person's shoes. So it's way easier to feel it, to be in it with your own, body and soul.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted for people to really connect with these characters. And these characters, mind you, they are real people, with real names, with real companies. And it was not easy to get to this point because it's much easier to say, oh, we're going to anonymize it all. You're going to use just a random name and a random company. But we decided together with the people that I've interviewed to really, share this is a reality. These are the names of the people. This is what happened. This is like, a real snapshot of a couple of days in someone's life at IBM or, anywhere else.
Yeah. So
I was convinced that was the thing. But then I am not very good at drawing. I mean, I can draw, but not to this level.
Yeah.
So I went looking for someone that could help me. And I went online and I found this dude in Argentina who's called Gustavo Cañete, who is an absolute genius. He's an artist who works with graphic novels only. And he has designed all of the pieces in black and white. So his style is a black and white style mainly. And so I've been working with him on the first part of the book, which is all about making sense of the status quo. So I had these few stories that were about, understanding the current context in the organization. And I could really see it in a black and white format. And so the way we started working with him is that I basically went out, interviewed the people that I wanted to include in the book, recorded the interview, I transcribed the interview, and then basically I could just see the graphic novel in my head and write it as it was kind of a theater script. right?
Yeah.
So I was writing, panel one, Tom enters, he wears this and that, and this is what happens, right? And this is what people say.
Yeah.
And so I constructed this whole thing as a theater script, and then I sent it to him. And he was okay, yeah, I can work with this. And so the first round, he made a storyboard that was very sketchy, and probably that's what I sent you actually. Super sketchy, like you just could see like the volumes and then a bit of the basics interactions, and then on the base of that, we could very quickly iterate and work. Okay, I don't think this is not what I had in mind. This is what I had in mind, and then for him, it was a great chance to actually, bring his own perspective to it. When he would say, I don't think this scene actually works. I think it would work better in this other way. Because I'm the content expert, but he's the expert of the medium that we were using, right? So we managed to really work together very well in that respect. And then from there, when we were happy with the storyboard, we moved into a draft design, and then we moved into the detail design, and then we moved into adding the grays. And in between, I was having check-ins with the person that was actually the character in the book to make sure that they felt comfortable with it. Yeah. And for most people, it was like, oh my God, that's me in a cartoon format. That is so weird. Like everyone was like, oh my God, this is my life. Because when you tell your story in an interview is one thing, but when you actually see it, depicted like that, it's quite confronting.
Yeah.
Confronting / illuminating. For some people, it was like this eureka moment. For others, was like, oh my God, I'm not sure whether I should do this. And so this is how we went about it, and it was a great experience. And then at that point, then I started looking for other illustrators. So I worked with 3 different illustrator artists, 2 women and one man. And the reason why I decided to do that is because I had in mind 3 somewhat very different parts of this book. They were tackling quite different topics. So the first one, because it is about understanding what's there, it's black and white, it's quite dry. But the second part is about seeking change and the ability to really find the right type of change for your organization and for yourself. And the style had to be different. So I went out to look for someone that is good at working with monochromes, that has a way more, rounded style. And then the third part, which is a bit more realistic, it's about envisioning alternative futures. Yeah. And then we brought in all the colors, basically. And for these 2 women, I basically started researching all sorts of graphic novels and looking at people whose style I really liked. So I picked the style and then found the person. While with Gustavo I found the person and I really clicked with him. So we started together.
So you interviewed was Harriet Wakelam in the future one, from recollection? Was Harriet... What part did Harriet Wakelam? I remember Harriet from Australia.
The third part is alternative futures. Yeah.
The futures, okay. So what was the most challenging part of the book? You've got 3 sections there, like the current state, if you want, and then or the understanding the current state and the future. I think is pretty much, I'm kind of paraphrasing here. Yeah. What was the most interesting part of the book for you? What was the most illuminating piece that you learned?
Interesting for me was the personal. Like if you remember Harriet's story, at one point I described this moment where she got diagnosed with breast cancer.
That's right,
she had to leave work for 18 months in a very critical moment for her career and whatever she was trying to do at IAG. And that for me, those moments were the most. And even with Natalie from Wells Fargo, that's in the second part of the book, she tells about how, in her childhood, she kept moving between Paris and Manila. Her parents were from the Philippines, but they grew up in France, and how lonely they felt, and how that really had this layer of, imposter syndrome since a very early stage, that she felt that she was really not good enough for any of the environments where she was. And, these stories, this authenticity. And trust, if you like, because it takes a lot of trust from these people to actually come to me and actually tell me all of the details of these stories in their way. I was incredibly grateful on one side, and on the other, that was what really was illuminating for me, because the real message of this book is not just, to learn about, tips and tricks and design leadership, how to make it work, but it's really more about how to integrate work with your whole life, which is so much like you're arriving in this roles of leader where everyone is expecting you to have everything, beautiful and perfect and all of the answers. And actually you're a fucking mess because you just diagnosed cancer, or because, you feel that you're not good enough, or because you just got a divorce, right? These leaders are people first, and they come into these roles with a whole baggage, of experiences and personal, experiences that really shape the way they go about these roles. And for me that was really important to portray, and really important to tackle.
Yeah. I mean, myself and yourself are probably, we're envisaging the future by doing what we do for a living. And our aims are here to support design leaders and make sure that they can grow and be supported. And when you go through this book, you see how human a lot of the design leaders are in the book. What advice do you give to the leaders of design leaders on how they can actually support and better nurture design leadership organically within their organizations?
Trust, I guess. One of the messages that come across from a few of the chapters, from Jako's chapter, but also from Harriet chapter, but also actually from Shani, is that they had leaders that did not fully trust their position, their advice, their role, because they didn't fully understand design. They kind of could see some value in it, but they couldn't trust it fully. And therefore, there was as much as they could do. And at one point, they either had to completely change job or shift role. And so I guess if you decide to invest in it, and you decide to hire a design leader, which is not cheap, just let these people do the work.
I mean, trust is so integral to what we do. And it's funny, I'm writing a lot about that at the moment these days, as I'm kind of working on lots of newsletters and content potentially for something that I'm working on in the bigger scheme of things. Trust is it's easy to
say things.
I'm working on loads of stuff at the moment. Like my brain is, I'm trying to curtail my brain at the moment to stop me from doing more initiatives. But trust is something we know is really important. And based on your experience, and especially because you've done the PhD in Copenhagen, or Copenhagen, as some people say, how do you cultivate that trust? And is it possible to, you can't say to a CEO or a CFO or a CIO, come here, next week when I come in, because I noticed you didn't trust me this week, but if you can come in next week, could you start trusting me?
I think yes, it's to be something that starts beforehand. So in the moment in which you decide to bring in these people, and to put them in a certain position, to give them certain titles, certain budget, that certain size of teams, you're creating a partnership.
Yeah.
Right? You're creating a partnership that says, I believe that this could, become a value creation element for my organization.
Yeah.
And that has to be treated as a partnership that will grow, and there will be setbacks, and there will be success moments, but you've got to trust the person that you're partnering with. And that doesn't mean that you have to let people do whatever they want, right? You need to question, you need to challenge, because that's exactly what a partnership is. But, you must do it in a way that is, constructive, that is, enabling, rather than,
Absolutely. Do you think you have to like the person? You do have to like them at a personal level?
Absolutely. I think so. It's really hard to find with people that you cannot, it really doesn't work. You cannot partnership with someone that you dislike.
Yeah, and absolutely.
I've never seen it working.
No. Some people are like, look, it's a transaction. And I'm like, we're not robots. We're not robots. We want to be around people that you feel like they have your back. And, you're ultimately being very vulnerable when you're in a design leadership role. You're testing things. Yeah. I saw, and I don't usually like this person, Simon Sinek, too much. I think it trivializes an awful lot of stuff. But Simon Sinek once, I think I read it actually, or maybe I saw a video of it. I never can tell the difference in my brain anymore. But he was talking about, he was working hand to mouth. So he was basically earning money just to survive. when he was working on Why, like that book, I can't remember. I think it's just called Why, actually, the book. He was looking for organizations where he could test a lot of the stuff out.
Yeah.
And whenever an organization rang up to him and said, "Hey, listen, why should we hire you?" And his response was, don't hire me. Actually, you're not the right person for me. And he would let them go. He said, if they come in with a suspicious mindset, and they come in with that whole kind of like having to prove yourself, that's usually a red flag. And I'm like, absolutely, Simon. That is something I'm always saying. Like, if they're coming into you kind of going, why should I hire a group of designers? And I'm like, well, don't.
See, that's such a great point, because I see a lot of design leaders just not getting this and getting into these new positions where the question is exactly that. What are you going to bring? Why shall I hire you? This and that. How are you going to prove? Where are your numbers? Straight away, like they want. Saying, but they will change. I will convince them. No, they won't. They will not change. You will not. You're going to burn out. It's going to be awful. You're going to last no more than a year, and then you're going to change job. This is usually what happens.
Yeah. The way I see it is most people have about 10 or 15 punches in their career. Okay. Like, so that's punches being jobs, like opportunities to really have a knockout.
Yeah.
Don't waste them on these kind of opportunities. Like, because if you want to give 2 years, 5 years, 10 years to an organization, you're still in the same position. I don't mean to be really kind of negative, Nancy, again on the same role, but like, you're wasting your life. You're working in an organization that doesn't value you, and it's probably
just wasting your opportunity for your career. But it's just really, it does something to you, because you are in an environment where everyone keeps telling you that you're not enough. The way you're bringing is just not good. That is not helpful. That and it does something to you as a person. But back to the point that you are a person before being a leader. And it's really hard to come out on the other side with self-confidence and a lot of ideas. It just doesn't happen.
Do you think design leaders need to be, what kind of training? What do you learn through this book? Was it a formalized approach where design leaders suddenly do an MBA or something like that? And
no, I don't think an MBA is needed, but I think, job rotation is a very good one. Being able to actually, experience different parts of the organization, like finance and in HR, in operations, and how things actually work, the language that people use, and the unwritten rules, all those little dynamics. I think that those kind of stuff are incredibly helpful. And I think the most effective leaders that I've seen, and especially portraying this book, are people that come from another side of the organization, that have done this and that. They were in engineering, or they were in tech, and then they discovered design, they studied design, they moved into design, but they're bringing with them like a whole bag of knowledge about how people operate in an organizational context. I don't think an MBA is needed, to be honest. I don't believe that spending $200,000 on an MBA is going to make you a better design leader.
I don't think so either. Like, for years I was like saying, maybe I should do an MBA. And then a few other people said, don't be so stupid.
No.
Like, don't be so stupid. It doesn't work in my brain. One of the things I want to ask you a little bit more, and we'll talk about John Maeda as well in a second, who was the forward of the book. John Maeda, is he still at Microsoft? Is he still at the...
yes, it is. Yeah. It's the AI guru. Are you watching the kitchen AI?
What's AI? Only joking.
But it's a super funny kind of LinkedIn video.
My brain is overloaded on AI stuff for the moment. I just need to switch off for a little bit. But I'll come back to that point in a minute. I want to ask you something that struck me in the book, and you've lots of different people from all around the world. Okay. And I'm working with other territories at the moment, and I'm learning about different cultural aspects. What's the risk of two white people here talking about design leadership?
Oh my God.
Are we looking at this, and I presume the answer is going to be yes, we're looking at it from a Western perspective, in terms of our cultures. Most of the text out there in leadership that I can find is very white and very Western and, American. What advice do you give to people who are looking to challenge those cultural norms and really ensure that they're bringing an inclusive mindset to design leadership? So we're not perpetuating the MBA kind of requirement.
Actually, one of the reasons why it took me so long to write this book is because I was really keen to find at least 3 or 4 people that were not white and men and, living in the States or the UK. And that took me a really long while. Like to find a Black woman in a leadership position was just next to impossible. It was so difficult. I had to, it took me 6 months. And not because there are no Black women in leadership positions or design leadership positions specifically. It's just because, a lot of these people are not that, visible in the network that I have, which is all white and Western. And so I really had to dig into the 10th layers of my network to start finding names and people. And, and I found treasures. Some incredible people are portrayed in this book, like Tanara, like, Shani, like Natalie. So I guess just don't think that your world is their world, because your world is 1% of the world. So, there is way more around in the, even just starting from your network, but, gravitating towards, higher layers. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the diversity and inclusion, obviously, but this is not my field. But, I guess just my recommendation would be just don't stop to the neighbor, to the first person that is a guru in the thing. There are so many, and you include. I mean, at least I'm a woman. You're even a man. It's just so hard, so hard. We are surrounded with just people that think and talk like us. And to be honest, people in leadership positions, design leaders are found in Western kind of modern corporations. That it's not a role that is very widespread or common in general, even in corporations. So it's really a subset of a subset of a subset.
Yeah.
Yet a lot of diversity can be found. It should be found more. And so the reason why I chose this woman, the reason why, I chose this character for the cover is to allow, people that are in that, path, in the design, career, maybe at a manager level, to start seeing themselves and the opportunities that could be for themselves, to show that you don't have to be a white man in order to get to these positions, but also that you don't need like a degree in design to get into these positions, that you can come into these positions from all sorts of different places. And that's a piece of work that I started doing also with my, video series. I have a video series called Design Voices Elevated, and I've produced 2 series. And I try to look in diversity in all sorts of different senses. For example, interviewing someone that does not have a degree, that was homeschooled for her entire life, that was coming from a family where there were 10 children. And yet she is in a design leadership position. But what does that mean in terms of stigma that you carry around, that you do not have a degree, where everyone else has a degree, a master or a PhD from some top universities, right? That's another, aspect of, bringing the different perspectives to the table.
The future of design leadership is something that I'd love to get your perspective on a little bit more. We can talk about D&I stuff, but as you pointed out, it's not an area of expertise of mine and nor yours. So I don't want to add, kind of thoughts on that space when there's a great leader like yourself here in front of us. Where do you see the future of design leadership? Because it's still relatively new. Like we've got product leadership and marketing leadership, and design leadership is still kind of finding its feet. Like, if you imagine I had a DeLorean and we drove at 88 miles an hour and we went into the future and it was 2050, what are the things that you'd love to look back and see that has changed to enable design leadership to prosper within organizations?
I really doubt the design leadership as it is right now will prosper in organizations. I think it will die pretty soon. I don't think in 10 years' time we will see
design leaders
with those titles, with this type of shape. They will be there, and I think it will grow, but within structures that are way more understandable for organizations. I really see design leaders in strategy roles, right? Probably different type of title. It is not design leader, but something more related to strategy. Yet you are a design leader. You bring design. That's your mindset. That's your toolbox. That's the way you think and see the world. Your perspective. Your pair of glasses. It's just that it's not a title that is called Chief
The
Design.
label.
You know what I mean? It's not a label. Because you're not representing design, you're representing something else. I've always seen design as a medium to an end. I don't see design as the end, right?
Yeah.
Like you embrace design to do something else. To do what? And that's why I try to frame these three parts of the book around the three things that I think, the three areas where I think design has the most to give in an organizational context. Because we keep saying design can be applied to everything and anything. And I don't think it's true. Actually, I don't think it's true. There are certain problems that really require way more analytical approaches than design. But design really thrives in uncertainty, thrives in visualizing alternative futures. It really thrives when the question is really fuzzy and there is not one solution to things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think design leaders will start covering roles more related to change management, to it. We will see them way more in HR functions as well, and as well as in strategy. I think this is going to be kind of the next step. What design leader will stay with that type of title will be still linked to product, still linked to UX, which I don't think it is the design leader that we want to see out there.
Yeah.
Like impact the potential of design in the world, right?
Yeah, I think it's rare enough to see somebody, unless it's on LinkedIn, of course, where everyone is delighted to announce they've got a design leadership role. Sorry, I'm being really cynical about LinkedIn these days, but so you're saying in the future that title of design leadership in an organization will most likely, be dissolved and kind of morph into other things across the organization. Like the DNA, the mindset will permeate more of the organization. Who will be the person that they look to then for the future of design then, if there's no design leader, so to speak, within the organization? What area do you think will own it? Like at the moment,
you need someone to own it. Like, I had in my blog, I wrote a piece at one point called the whole point of having a seat to the table is bullshit.
Yeah.
And it caused like a lot of blah, blah, blah fuss about it and responses. But actually the very point about that is that you cannot treat design as a silo. Design is not finance. Absolutely. Like it cannot just live in a silo. Design needs to live and breathe across horizontally the organization in order to unleash its full potential. So maybe there is no one single example of what good looks like. Maybe there are 13 different examples of what good looks like. And these people will have very different job titles and very different backgrounds and very different ways to portray what is the value of design. And some will be quantitative, some others will be qualitative, and it will be more distributed. And I think that is the only way for design to really unleash its power in an organizational context. There is no way we'll be able to change anything in these places unless we embrace what they are.
Yeah. So I've got one more question. We're not on the DeLorean anymore, folks. We've left the DeLorean. We're back in 2025. I know it was crazy. We all went into the future there. Marzia did a great role playing Marty McFly, but now we're back. If you are listening to this and you're in a role at the moment and there's a fire inside, there's a fire inside where you're like looking and listening and kind of going, I'm going to buy that book. First of all, that's the first thing you need to do. And the second of all, I want to know. Marzia's like, no, yeah, go man, Gerry, go man. What advice do you give to emerging leaders that are there at the moment, that they're looking to take that step? Is it opening up Google and searching design leadership roles in my area, or what is it? Let's joke.
The advice from me would be to understand the context within which you operate. You have no idea how many people. I do a lot of coaching to design leaders and emerging leaders. And the first question I usually ask, who do you report to? Who does the person that you report to reports to? Do you know? Yeah. And they usually know who they report to. They have no idea what happens after that. And that is a massive signal of failure. Like you are failing whatever you're trying to do already from the first question. You've got to understand the context within which you are immersed. Who are the people? What are the power plays? How do people make decisions? How is value created? That's another question I ask. How is value created in your organization?
Yeah.
Like everyone is in their own little, box. I know that I need to, take care of this part, but you are part of a much larger whole. And unless you understand the larger whole, you will never be able to spot opportunities for design to really unleash its value.
Yeah, 100%.
Period.
100%. I mean, there's lots in that conversation alone. So the emerging leaders, they've got the fire inside. They're still listening to this conversation.
Just go and listen to others.
Go and listen to others.
And stop advocating for design. Stop evangelizing. Stop
selling design.
Means other design is good, because you're not going to be able to do that. They're going to hate you. And so, the only thing you can do is understand where you can add value and add that value, and then let people recognize that. Yeah,
it's the push and pull scenario, really. It's like you're bringing people closer. So there's a load of pieces there for people to get started if they wanted to. And I don't like when people come on the podcast and say, buy my books. I'll do it for you. This book is fantastic. Okay. It really is, because it gives you those multi perspectives. If you do have that fire inside you, folks, and you're listening to it, I don't get any money from referring these books. People don't come on this podcast if I don't think there's merit in what they're talking about. There's merit in this. There's value in this book. And you can do an awful lot worse than buy this and drop it onto the desk of your person that you're working with as well, and share it around the organization. If people want to follow you, Marzia, what's the best way for people to do that and learn more about the services that you offer?
Well, I have a website, marzia.studio, and LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn, although you hate LinkedIn these days.
No, I don't. I'm just like, it's a store at the moment. designmavericks.substack.com.
Oh, yes, also that.
I'm here as your PR agent.
.substack.com. That's where
I'll put a link to those in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching full episodes on Spotify, they will be in there in the description, links to those. Marzia is remarkable, and I didn't say it at the top of the conversation, but congratulations on the new addition to your family as well. Okay, I've seen photos. An absolutely stunning creation, probably the best service you've ever created.
Definitely. It's a product service kind of ecosystem.
Absolutely. It's got the full potential to see an amazing future as a mother and a father like you have at home. So congratulations again from everyone here on This Is HCD.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Gerry. It's very nice to see you again.